Hello and welcome back to Bookish Brits. My name is Michelle and I don't know how it is with you, but every single time I meet somebody new who hears that I like to read, the first question I get asked is, what's your favorite book? And to me, that question is very panic-inducing. There's so many possibilities and choices, and for whatever reason, like based on my mood at the time, things change. There's so many. It's so hard to narrow it down to just one. I start rambling, I forget titles. And the choices down to 10 of my favorite YA novels right here at this moment. It was really hard to narrow it down, but I've done so, so here we go. The first book that springs to mind is Jellicoe Road by Melina Marchetta. I was saying on Twitter earlier in the week, if there was ever an author who would appear more than once on a top 10 favorites list, it would definitely be Melina Marchetta. I've seen people say that it's a little bit challenging and confusing starting this book. I didn't really find that when I started reading this book. I dove right into it, and everything about it, from the characters to the stories to the relationships, everything about it drew me in. I love Melina Marchetta, I always will, and this is one of my favorites. Next up we have Shadows on the Moon by Zoe Marriott. I adore Zoe Marriott as well. I've enjoyed every single one of her books. This is my favorite. It's her retelling of Cinderella, except set in a fictional feudal Japan in which the main character is able to do this magical thing in which she hides her appearance, and in doing so she hides her self-harm scars, she hides her grief and her pursuit of vengeance, and I absolutely adore this book so much. Next up we have Heart-Shaped Bruise by Tanya Byrne. This is her debut novel. This story is about Emily Cole, a girl whose entire life is changed after her dad is accused of doing horrible things, and it shakes like the foundation of her identity, and she decides to lash out at the person that she thinks is responsible. And I found this book to be incredibly emotional and moving and really thought-provoking. It's amazing and I really recommend it. Another really super emotional book is Undone by Kat Clark. This book will stay with me for a very, very long time. Not only is it incredibly emotional and sort of heartbreaking going through, but the ending left me absolutely speechless. This ending, while I found it perfect and incredibly fitting, and I read it and I thought, actually there couldn't be any other ending except for the one that Kat Clark has written. But I also wanted something else to happen as well. And also on my favorites list is Where She Went by Gail Forman. I absolutely adore If I Stay. I'm so looking forward to the movie, but I actually preferred Where She Went. Everything in If I Stay was really sad, it was heartbreaking, but everything in Where She Went was so much more of everything. I think Adam and Mia are perfect, and the choices that they made were so believable and understandable, as well as heart-wrenching, and the scene on the bridge. I think my next book is the most recent addition to my top 10 list, and that is Far From You by Tess Sharp. This book was only published recently. This is Tess Sharp's debut novel, and I love it. I love that this book is about a recovering addict. I love that that plays a major part in the story. I love the love triangle in its unusual format. I love the relationships between the three main characters. Just everything about this book was very emotional for me, and it was just amazing. I don't have copies of the next 4 books, but the first I wanted to talk to you about is Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness. There's no way that I could talk about my 10 favorite books without mentioning at least one by Patrick Ness. Now, Monsters of Men is the 3rd and final book in the Chaos Walking trilogy, and I've never read a book like it before. I actually had to put it down several times as I was reading it in order to calm myself down. I was starting to worry that my heart was beating too quickly and it was very dangerous, but it was just so exciting. I needed to know what was happening right away. Oh, and everything, it was so tense and emotional and oh. Also on my list is The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. I loved this book so much. I feel like I'm repeating myself again and again as I'm talking about these books, but it really is, like, for me, feeling emotion is definitely the thing that I look forward to the most whenever I pick up a book, and every single one of these 10 books made me feel something very, very strongly. And with The Sky is Everywhere, it was the grief of the main character's sister, the confused, complex feelings that she has between 2 different boys, but I also really loved, like, everything else around it, from the poetry to her crazy family and everything. I loved this book. Next up on my list is Graffiti Moon by Kath Crowley. This is a book that I read on a whim and just read it in one sitting, and I could read it again and again solely for the fact that it is so beautiful. Another thing that I really love when I'm reading is not only do I appreciate a lot of emotion and making me as the reader feel very strongly about things, I also really love beautiful writing and this atmosphere that goes along with a book, and I also really enjoy it when so many other creative things come together to form a book like Graffiti Moon. I loved that this book was about poetry and art and glass blowing, and just, it's so perfect and beautiful. And finally, the 10th and final book on my list of my top 10 favorites is Some Girls Are by Courtney Summers. This was a book that made me bawl the most ugly tears ever. I remember reading this book, and Courtney Summers is just one of those authors that makes me feel everything, and I could feel everything about the main character's journey. Her guilt about bullying others, the isolation, and just the horrible feeling of being bullied by her former friends. So as you can see from my choices and the way that I've described these books, beautiful, emotional, just powerful, contemporary books are definitely my thing. Let me know if any of my favorites or any of your favorites. Let me know which ones you would include on your list. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if you've liked what you've seen today. I'd love to hear from you, so please do that. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.